All right, I'm Assistant Chief Randy Blankenbaker, Blankenbaker. I'm the Assistant Chief in charge of the Investigations Bureau, which of course includes the Crimes Against Persons Division and the Homicide Unit. I'm here to talk to you about a murder that occurred on June 24th at approximately 3:34 a.m. Jonathan Ryan Edelin. That's Jonathan, Ryan, R-Y-A-N, Edelin, E-D-E-L-E-N. He's a black male, 3/11/1981. He called 911 and reported that his wife, Sierra Sadia Nakwe Ford, and I'll spell those for you, Sierra, C-E-A-I-R-A, Sadia, S-E-D-I-A, Nakwe, N-E-Q-U-A-Y, Ford, F-O-R-D, a black female, 8/22/86. So Jonathan Edelin called 911 to report that Miss Ford, who he called his wife, had stopped breathing. Dallas Police and Fire Rescue were dispatched to the location at 2514 Perryton Drive in the Primrose Apartments. DFR arrived and observed that Miss Ford was deceased and that rigor mortis had already begun. After DPD officers arrived, Mr. Edelin approached one of the officers in the apartment and stated, "Put the cuffs on me and take me to jail. I killed my wife." Edelin was placed into custody and transported to Jack Evans Police Headquarters, where he provided a voluntary statement admitting to the offense. Suspect Edelin stated that on June 22nd, so the 24th, now backing up to the 22nd, that on June 22nd, he and Miss Ford had become involved in an argument. Edelin indicated that Miss Ford would not stop talking. And as the argument continued, suspect Edelin threw a blanket over Miss Ford as she lay on a mattress in a bedroom. He got on top of her, grabbed a pillow, placed it over her head, holding it there until she stopped moving. Edelin indicated that when he removed the blanket and pillow, Miss Ford was no longer breathing. He's currently in the Dallas County Jail. During the investigation of this incident, it was discovered that Dallas Police had received a 911 call from a citizen on June 22nd, the day of the murder, at approximately 10:45 p.m., reporting a disturbance in progress. The caller reported a male talking softly while a female was screaming statements to the effect of, "I'm sorry, I won't fight you. I did apologize." Two Dallas police officers, a trainer and his recruit, responded to the location. The officers were dispatched to the call at 11:08 p.m. and arrived at the location at 11:13 p.m. So that timeline again is that the call comes in at about 10:45 p.m. The call has to be processed, put into the queue to be dispatched. It is dispatched at 11:08 p.m. and officers arrive at the location at 11:13 p.m. The officers attempted to contact the 911 caller to verify exactly where to go to. So they went to the caller's apartment and knocked on the door. They did not receive an answer at that door, and so they went to the apartment described on the call sheet and talked with a male inside that apartment. From the door, the officers could see the interior common area of the apartment, the living room, dining room type area. They did not see any signs of a disturbance, but did note that the television was turned up loudly. Believing that a disturbance had not occurred, the officers then updated their call sheet to indicate the actions that they had taken. They had spoken to the resident, there was no disturbance, and that he had stated that he was home alone. We now believe, though, that the officer spoke to an individual who is a close friend to suspect Edelin. And I believe he actually calls him his brother. They're that close of friends. while Edelin was actually in another area of the apartment with the deceased, Miss Ford. The homicide unit is seeking to determine what role, if any, that the friend played in the homicide. We also learned that suspect Edelin's mother and 2 children, a male 6 and a female 4, that he had with Miss Ford were also at the location. As you might imagine, this remains an active homicide investigation with still a lot of questions to be asked, interviews to be done, and leads to be followed up on. The Internal Affairs Division has been asked to conduct an investigation into the manner in which the responding officers handled the call that was received at that location on June 22nd. I'd like to say that the lady who called us that night on June 22nd is a lady who indicated that she was in her 90s. So she was quite fearful when she called. That's probably why she didn't answer the door when the officers tried to verify. But it was courageous of her to do so, to call us and to bring officers out. And we thank her for that. I'll take any questions you may have.
She responded, she didn't answer her door, but the officers knew which door to go to in terms of investigate the domestic disturbance concerns.
What she had done originally was describe that it was coming from an apartment below hers. And so since they probably weren't sure of the exact apartment number, they thought, let's knock on her door, verify it before we knock on this other one. When she didn't answer, they went ahead and went to that door as described on the call sheet.
Did the responding officers have any idea that the year prior there had been a call to that very same address with very similar accusations?
Yeah, I'm not aware whether or not they had that knowledge.
Chief, was there any indication that the officers should have done more? They should have maybe searched the apartment, or they should have, did they do their due diligence in your mind, or what is your impression?
Well, that's one of the reasons why we'll ask Internal Affairs to look at it and do that with a review of our administrative requirements, our procedure requirements. Each case is always individual, and these officers came out, and from what they observed at the time, obviously it appeared to them that a disturbance was not happening there, and they took the actions they did. And we'll dig a little deeper when we do an internal affairs investigation to make sure that their actions were appropriate.
Generally speaking, if someone calls a domestic disturbance concern, you come to my home to investigate that. What are the procedural steps you take to ascertain whether it's legitimate or not?
Well, since you have a third party, if you can talk to the third party, they can sometimes give you more information, right, to help you determine whether or not that's the case. Other than that, you do some of what these officers did, which is you look to see if there is indeed signs of a disturbance. Is furniture turned over, things like that. You look at the demeanor of the person that you're talking to, try to determine, are they sweaty, are they scratched, are they bleeding, are they breathing hard? And that kind of gives you some more ideas about how much further you can go in getting, into the apartment. Also, again, these officers heard a very loud TV, which I think they believe could have been mistaken for a disturbance or screaming.
What about, Chief, can you elaborate on what that man told them? I mean, so they didn't see any visible signs of a domestic disturbance or any kind of fight, but what was their line of questioning? What did he say to them?
So we don't have all of that available for us at this moment, but basically that he was there alone and that there was no disturbance that he was aware of going on. That's the basic things he told them.
So would he potentially be charged in aiding and abetting in any way, or potentially covering up this?
Well, like I said, this is an ongoing investigation, so we'll have to determine if anything he did constitutes any type of criminal offense. He hadn't been charged at this time with anything.
Prior to the first domestic call by the 90-year-old woman, were there any other prior domestic violence calls, disturbance calls to that residence where the victim was found?
Okay. Last year in September, there was an aggravated assault with a deadly weapon offense made. our suspect was arrested at that time. The charge was reduced to a misdemeanor assault charge, and I believe he was sentenced to 120 days in jail for that, which he had already served.
Is there a policy about contacting the victim, the caller, when somebody makes a call to 911? Is it just common sense to go get their account of what happened, or is there a policy you're supposed to make contact with them to verify before you leave the scene, or is there nothing to?
Well, in this case, the officers did try to contact the lady who called, and they weren't able to do that. Policy on that is kind of dictated by what's going on at the time and what the caller says. Oftentimes, we have callers that call in third party. They don't leave their name. They specifically say they don't want to be contacted. You know, you don't have a way to get in touch with them, and so even if we had a policy that required it, we wouldn't be able to do it.
Do you know what they were talking about? He said she wouldn't stop talking, and that's why he suffocated her. What was the argument about?
As best as I can tell at this time, that's what the argument was about, that he wanted some quiet, and she was talking. Whether she was arguing or specifically what she was doing that he didn't want to hear, we don't know at this time. But that's what the argument was about.
And
One more
during
question.
And during that time, there were 2 kids in the house, and whose mother was in there?
His mother was in the house and the 2 children.
Just
When he
That's
suffocated
it,
her.
that's it.
No, we have a question about, I need more
I'll take
detail
another
on
one.
your, the experience level of the officers. You mentioned a recruiter officer or something like that?
One of them is a recruit, so they're on training, and the other one is a training officer.
Okay, and so it isn't an area that officer routinely, in the division that they're in, they've been there. We heard over there from those neighbors that they had responded to that apartment many times on domestic issues. So was there information about those officers and specifics about them responding to calls?
I don't have any specific information about those officers.
Where are